Good afternoon. There was a technical fault, so that it was late to start the lecture. Last week we started this topic, parity conditions. We have been discussing on purchasing power parity, right? So I'll be continuing the same session today, and I'll do some questions. We'll discuss some questions on purchasing power parity. Right, we discuss up to Fisher effect, right? So I'll be starting from international Fisher effect today. Right, in the Fisher effect, what we discuss, it says that it's the nominal interest rate is a function of real interest rate and the premium for inflation, right? So in the international Fisher effect, it's talk about inflation adjusted interest rate, right? In the international Fisher effect, it is about the inflation adjusted interest rate. It says that inflation adjusted interest rate should be equal, right? The spot rate adjusts to the interest rate differential between two countries. If we right, what it says, inflation adjusted interest rate between two countries should be equal, right? So that means this is the home country interest rate, right? We say RH minus RF, right? This is the interest rate differential between two countries. Okay, this should be equal to inflation differential, which is IH minus IF, right? So this is the inflation interest differential and this is the interest rate differential between two countries. In the international Fisher effect, it says that inflation adjusted interest rate, that means RH minus RIH, right? IH should be equal to RF minus IF. This is the inflation adjusted interest rate, right? In simple terms, which is called the real interest rates. Right? So in the international Fisher effect, it uses interest rate rather than inflation rate to explain why exchange rate change over time. Right? You okay? You understand Vithanage? Right? In international Fisher effect, it uses interest rate rather than the inflation rate to explain why exchange rate change over time, right? This is the inflation interest rate differential and this is the inflation differential between inflation differential, right? This is interest rate differential, right? If we are to maintain the purchasing power parity, interest rate differential between two countries should equal to inflation differential between two countries, right? If this happens only, there will be no impact on exchange rate. Otherwise, exchange rate would change, right? So in the international Fisher effect, it says that if the interest rate differential, interest rate adjusted, inflation adjusted interest, this is the inflation adjusted interest rate between two countries are equal, there will be no change in the exchange rate, right? So in other words, this international Fisher effect says that countries with higher inflation rate should bear higher interest rate, that means countries with higher interest rate, right, higher inflation rate, countries with, let's take the same example, RF should equal to IH minus IF, right? Countries with higher inflation rate, if in the foreign countries inflation rate is high, right, this country's interest rate should also be high, right? When if we are to deduct bigger amount from this interest rate, this should be a higher amount, right? Anyway, the answer we get here for the both sides should be equal. Countries with higher inflation should bear the higher interest rate than countries with lower rate of inflation. Say for example, in the foreign country there is a higher inflation, right? So according to the Fisher effect, it implies that their interest rate is also high, right? It is actually happen. If in a country the inflation rate is high, obviously that country's interest rates also high, right? So in order to maintain the stability in the economic system, exchange rate stability, this should happen, right? So this is explained in international Fisher effect, right? Any questions? Right, this is the equation for international Fisher effect. You can see that international Fisher effect is a combination of purchasing power parity and Fisher effect, right? It is a combination of purchasing power parity, right, and Fisher effect. Okay. See, this ET bar is the expected exchange rate in period T. Expected exchange rate in period T, right? So it's a combination of purchasing power parity and Fisher effect. If we are to maintain the, if you have to calculate the international Fisher effect, we should know purchasing power parity and Fisher effect, right? So it is a combination of those two. International Fisher effect assumes or postulated the nominal interest rate differential should reflect the inflation rate differential. Nominal interest rate differential should reflect the inflation rate differential, right? Same thing I wrote before. RH minus RF is the nominal interest rate differential, right? Nominal interest rate differential, right? This should equal to inflation differential, IH minus IF. This is the nominal this is for the inflation we don't say nominal, this is the inflation differential, right? When you adjust the inflation of the particular country to the interest rate, we get real interest rate, right? So this assume that real interest rates between countries are equal. expected rates of return are equal in the absence of government intervention. Expected rate of return, right? If there is no government intervention, it is assumed that expected return of expected ERR, expected rate of return, are equal. Why is that? If the expected rate of returns are not equal in countries, it will lead to cash inflows and outflows, right? Expected rate of return are equal in the government intervention, right? So that indirectly says that it will stop the fund inflows and outflows from the country due to the exchange rate change, right? International Fisher effect, simplify the international Fisher effect equation. Here, this is the equation for international Fisher effect, right? RH minus RF is equal to E1 minus E0, right, divided by E0, right? So this one we get from purchasing power parity, right? That means change in exchange rate should reflect in the change in interest rate, should equal to change in interest rate. Change in interest rate of the country should equal to the change in exchange rate. That means there will be no real impact on the exchange rate, right? Because interest rate change also happen equally in line with the exchange rate change, right? Right? As we know that international Fisher effect is the equation which represent international Fisher effect is equal to purchasing power parity, right, plus Fisher effect. In other words, instead of Fisher effect, we can write Fisher effect says nominal rate is equal to real rate plus inflation, right? So international Fisher effect is equal to real rate plus inflation plus purchasing power parity, right? So the same thing reflects here, okay? So what are the implications of international Fisher effect? Currency with lower interest rate expected to appreciate relative to one with a higher rate. Currency with the lower interest rate expected to appreciate relative to one with a higher rate. If a particular country has a lower interest rate, right, that country's exchange rate would be increasing, right? Country with the currency with the lower interest rate expected to appreciate relative to one with the higher interest. We always compare two countries, right? If one country's inflation interest rate is lower compared to the other one, that means the other country's interest rate is high, right? So the country has lower interest rate. Countries with the lower interest rates, currency of the country with the lower interest rate would be appreciating compared to the other country, because their interest rate is higher, the other country's interest rate is higher, right? So it will lead to depreciate the exchange rate of the country. As a result of that, compared to that country, this country with lower interest rate would have a appreciation of currency, right? Financial market arbitrage ensures interest rate differential is an unbiased predictor of change in future spot rate, right? Here by using the international Fisher effect equation, we can understand this. We have RH minus RF, right? This is equal to E1 minus E0 divided by E0, right? This says ensures interest rate differential is an unbiased predictor of change in future spot rate. Interest rate differential would definitely lead to change the future spot rate. It is obvious. If there is a difference in these two, it will affect the exchange rate differential as well, right? Therefore, interest rate differential would be reflecting in the exchange rate differential, right? From this equation, we can obviously understand or identify that this assumption implication is there in the international Fisher effect, right? If there is an interest rate differential that would between two countries, that would definitely change the future spot rate. This change could be either increasing the spot rate or decreasing. We don't know what it is. This could be a negative result or positive result, right? So whatever it has in the interest rate differential would be reflecting in the exchange rate differential, right? So it will lead to have a higher E0 than E1. Then if there is a negative one, so E0 would be, if it is negative, E0 would be greater than E1. If it is positive, E1 should be greater than E0. Okay. Yeah, this is an example. Using the international Fisher effect forecast US dollar and Swiss franc rates in July, the 1 year interest rate is 4% on Swiss francs and 13% on US dollars. Alright. If the current exchange rate is 1 Swiss franc equal to $0.63, what is the expected future exchange rate in 1 year? Expected future exchange rate in 1 year. In July, the 1 year interest rate is 4% on Swiss francs and 13% on US dollars, right? So using the interest rate parity equation, you have to find out future expected future exchange rate in 1 year, right? What we have to find? We have to find E bar T, right? If we rearrange the same equation, this is equal to E0 times what is the interest on in US let's take I US, right, divided by I Swiss franc, I Switzerland, right? So this is the equation we get. Yeah, right. So what is, we don't know E bar T, right? I have rearranged the same equation, right? E0 is given, it is 0.63, right? And interest rate in US is 1 point, this should be 1 plus, no? 1 plus US, 1 plus Swiss, right? 1.13 divided by 1.04. Now we can find out ET after 1 year. ET is the exchange rate, expected exchange rate, expected E bar means expected exchange rate, E bar T, or we can write E bar 1, right? E bar 1 is equal to 0.63 times 1.13 divided by 1.04. Vithanage, have you calculated? Yes, it is 0.68, right? Let's move to the next part. In the next part of the same question, it's asked if a change in expectations regarding future US inflation causes the expected future spot rate to rise to 0.70, E bar T is given, and we know now what is the current exchange rate, right? What should happen to the US interest rate? So you have to find out this rate. Right? This should be, you should find out this rate. Okay? US interest rate. Okay? This is part A. For part B, E bar T divided by E0 equals 1 plus interest rate of US, right, US divided by 1.04. This, there is no change in this one, right? And we can plug the value here as well. ET is 70.70 and E0 is 0.63, right? So what is 1 plus R US? What is the US interest rate? Just solve the equation. Right? What is the interest rate in US? It should be yeah, 15.55, right? 1 plus RUS divided by 1.04. So RUS equals to 15.55%. Okay. Right? Okay. That is an application of IFE. So we are moving to interest rate parity theory, right? So before explaining the slides, I will explain you how this is developed. Right? So what interest rate parity? There should be a equality of interest rate between countries, otherwise it will be affecting to the spot exchange rate of the exchange rate between two countries, right? John Keynes, well famous economist, introduced this exchange rate interest rate parity theory in 1920s. So if we take an example to understand this, how this exchange interest rate parity occurs, right? In the interest rate parity, what we say, it should be possible to gain the same level, same real value of one's monetary investments of one country, right, when they invest the same amount in somewhere else in another country, right? So let's take an example. For example, let's assume that let's assume that there is an investor. He has let's say 1 unit of pound. He has 1 unit of pound in his hand, right? Investor right, has 1 pound in his pocket, right? So he want to invest this, right? So as he is in UK, what he will be doing, he can invest this in UK, right, at existing interest rate in UK, okay, at I, right? So what is the result of this investment? What is the, say for example, he invested this money for a year. At the end of the year, what is the value of this investment, right? What is the value of this investment? He had 1 pound, right? He had 1 pound in his pocket. He invested this at I interest rate, okay? For this 1 pound, he get at the end of the year 1 plus I in pounds, right? This is the return he get after 1 year, right? So in the global economy, as it is open to invest in other countries as well, what alternative he can do? Apart from investing in, instead of investing in UK, he can convert this 1 pound to dollars, right? He can convert this 1 pound to dollars, right? So he can invest that dollars in US money market, in US market at US interest rate, okay? For example, he can convert this 1 pound into dollars, right? So what is the amount of dollar he get? So he can buy, let's assume that exchange rate between two countries is 0 equals to S0 is equal to 1 pound, right? This is equal to 1 pound, right? So now he has this much of dollars, right? So this dollars he can invest, right? He converted this 1 pound to dollars, and now he is going to invest this in US at interest rate US, right? Let's take at dollar rate, okay? Now what is the return he get at the end of the year? At the end of the year, he will be enjoying interest, so the invested amount times 1 plus I dollars. Here his return would be in dollars because he invested in US, right? So if the interest rate parity to occur, the total return that he get from these two countries should be equal, right? So when the equilibrium occurs, when the equilibrium occurs, when the equilibrium occurs, to at the equilibrium, these two should be equal. This one should equal to this return, right? So if interest rate parity exists, right? If interest parity exists, this 1 pound times 1 plus I pound should equal to exchange rate between UK and US, right, times 1 plus I dollars. Okay, so now we have S0, which is going to be the spot rate, right? What is S0? S0 is the spot rate and we have 1 plus 1 I dollar, right, divided by 1 plus I pounds, right? This is equal to 1 pound, right? So if you can remember the purchasing power parity equation, right? If you can remember the purchasing power parity equation, it says that when you multiply S0, when you adjust the interest rate differential between two countries to the spot rate, you get the future exchange rate, right? When you adjust the interest rate differential, this is the interest rate differential between two countries, right, you get the future exchange rate. So our left hand side of the equation shows the equation for, this is the equation for future exchange rate, right? So we can rearrange this. S0 times 1 plus I dollar divided by 1 plus I pounds, right, should equal to, instead of 1 pound we can say it is the future exchange rate. Okay, right? So this equation is known as interest rate parity equation. This equation is known as interest rate parity equation, right? If there is a parity between these two countries, right, if the interest rate differential, if the spot rate adjusted inflation rate differential, right, spot rate adjusted, once we adjust the interest rate differential to the country, to a country's exchange rate, it should be representing the future exchange rate, right? This is the interest rate parity theory, right? Okay, so you have some money in your hand, you can invest either in Sri Lanka or you can convert that into pounds, dollar, or whatever the currency you like, and invest in that country at that rate, right? So according to the interest rate parity, the return that you get from one country should equal to the return you get from the other country, total return, right? If that is equal, interest rate parity is there. If that is equal, that means interest rate parity is there. Even once you convert your currency into the other country's currency, you are enjoying the same return, right? That means there is an interest rate parity. Okay. Any question? This is the equation for interest rate parity, IRP. Okay. Yeah, in the slides also I have explained the same. The theory states the forward rate S1 that we derived from this from the previous derivation was the forward rate. Forward rate differs from the spot rate at equilibrium by an amount equal to the interest rate differential between two countries. That is what we did. From the equation it says forward rate equals to the spot rate when you adjust the spot rate with the interest rate differential. Okay, interest rate differential. In the next slide it is explained further. The forward premium or discount equals the interest rate differential, right? What is the forward premium? This is, if you refer the purchasing parity equation, E1 minus E0 divided by E0. So this is the same thing. E1 is the forward rate. So F is the forward rate. S is the spot rate. We have to divide it from spot rate. If there is any change happen in the inflation, the exchange rate, that should reflect in the change in the interest rate, right? So that means if we adjust our interest the spot rate based on the interest rate differential between countries, right? If we adjust the exchange rate based on the interest rate differential between countries, future rate or the forward rate is equal to the spot rate, right? Or else the difference between forward rate and the spot rate reflects the interest rate adjusted spot rate, right? If we rearrange the same equation, F minus S is the differential between forward rate and the spot rate. This is equal to RH minus RF times S. When we adjust the interest rate differential to the spot rate, it is reflected in the forward rate and it reflects the difference between forward rate and the spot rate, right? In other words, there would be a difference in the forward rate and the spot rate due to the interest rate differential, right? In equilibrium, returns on currencies will be the same, that is no profit will be realized at the interest rate parity, which can be written as, yes, at the equilibrium we know that there will be no profit, right? Because change in interest rate differential between countries, when you multiply the exchange rate from the interest rate differential between countries, if you multiply this one from this spot rate, it should be equal to the F. Same thing, the same equation we have rearranged. Okay, interest rate differential between two countries should be adjusted with spot rate, then it should reflect the future exchange rate, right? So that is the interest rate parity theory. Right, before moving on to that, I will take about 5 minutes break. Right, we have been talking about interest rate parity. I'll take a break, 5 minutes and come. Right, interest rate parity theory we have been talking. Right, in the interest rate parity, what you have to remember is if you have some money and invest in somewhere, and when you convert that money to the other country's currency, the return that you get from both countries should be equal, right? You convert that money into the other country's currency and invest in the other country, the return from that investment is equal because of the interest rate parity, right? So from the interest rate parity theory, there is another theory is called covered interest parity, right? This the covered interest parity is about interest rate differential between countries should be zero, right? It says that interest rate differential between countries should be zero. That means RH minus RF is equal to 0, right? If the interest rate differential between countries is 0, there will be no arbitrage opportunities, right? If this is not equal to 0, right, not equal to 0, there will be arbitrage, that means non-zero. Okay, if this is non-zero, that means there is a positive or negative answer, right? In that case, there are arbitrage opportunities. There is a possibility of making profit from arbitrage. So that means it will lead to move money from one country to other, one market to other market, right? If the interest rate high in the home country, so the funds will be moving from foreign country to home country if this is not equal to 0. If RH minus RF is greater than 0, RH is higher, that means funds will be moving from foreign country to home country, right? But in covered arbitrage, it says that the interest rate differential between two countries should be equal to 0. Right? Conditions required, interest rate differential does not equal the forward premium or discount, right? Funds will move to country with more attractive rate, right? If the interest rate differentials are not equal to 0, funds will be moving from country where there is a lower interest rate to higher interest rate. Okay, that is covered interest arbitrage. Right? Market pressure develops as one country is more demanded spot and sold forward. Inflows of funds depresses interest rates. Parity eventually reached, right? So in the interest rate parity theory, we can see that there is a difference between spot rate and forward rate, right? So that for the arbitrageurs, what they can do, they can purchase at the spot rate, right, and sold at the forward rate, right? And this is possible when RH is not equal to RF, or difference between RH and RF is not equal to 0, right? If this is not equal, greater than or smaller than RF, then this can happen. Inflow of funds depresses interest rate. When RH is higher, funds will be moving from foreign country to home country. As a result of that, it will be depressing the interest rate, right? With the other variables of the business cycle, behavior of the other variables of the business cycle will lead to depress the interest rate of this country until this is equal. This RH, this fund will be for those funds of foreign country will be flowing to the home country, right? So as a result of that, finally parity condition occurs, right? So when RH is equal to RF means there is no difference in interest rate between countries, so there is no point of transforming funds from, or sending funds from one country to other. Everywhere you get the same amount, right? So that means the parity is occurred, right? Yeah, this is to sum up. Interest rate parity states higher interest rates on a currency offset by forward discounts, and lower interest rates are offset by forward premium, right? Interest rate parity equation, it says S1, that is the forward rate, equals to S0 spot rate times 1 plus I dollars divided by 1 plus I pounds, right? So this is the interest rate parity equation, right? Interest rate parity equation, right? But this says higher interest rate on a currency offset by forward discounts, right? If the particular country's interest rate is higher, right? Say for example, interest rate in US is higher than UK, right? So that will be reflecting in the forward rate. This is the forward rate, right? Expected future rate, right? Expected future spot rate, right? Higher interest rate on a currency offset by forward discount. That means if the interest rate of this country is higher, right, right, if denominator is higher than this one, right, forward rate would be lower, right? Right? If the interest rate is lower, the denominator is lower, we have to multiply this from a higher number. That means this will be higher, right? Lower interest rates are offset by the forward premiums, right? So anyway, same thing happens here. If the numerator is high, okay, so interest rate differential between two countries would be higher, right? So that would leads to increase the spot rate, the forward rate, expected forward rate. If this is lower, this one dollar rate, so that will leads to have a lower S1 compared, okay. Unbiased forward rate. Why unbiased rate? That means there will be no arbitrage profit. Unbiased rate state that if the forward rate is unbiased, right, then it should reflect the expected future spot rate. If the forward rate is unbiased, right, it should reflect the future spot rate, right, so that there will be no difference in the forward rate and the future spot rate, or in other terms FT and this is the forward rate, let's take ET, this should be equal, right? So if this is equal, there is no change in the spot rate, difference in the spot rate and the forward rate, right? So there is no possibility of making arbitrage profit, right? No arbitrage profit is there when the forward rate is unbiased, when unbiased forward rate is there, right? So next topic is currency forecasting models, right? For the multinational companies, financial managers, they are dealing with other countries in the world, right? In the multinational companies. So financial executives in those multinational companies face a big problem of forecasting the exchange rate, right? So they, as they are doing business with other countries in the world, they have to forecast the exchange rate, right? So because they know that the government intervention is unpredictable, they don't know what will happen in the economy side, political side of the particular country. They don't know what would be the impact of the total economy on the exchange rate. Therefore, anyway, they have to base on the estimations for their decision making purposes, right? So financial managers or executives in those multinational companies found it is very difficult to do the exchange rate forecasting because of this uncertainty involved with this exchange rate forecasting, right? Exchange rate itself always change, right? Therefore huge uncertainty is associated with the exchange rate. Therefore when they do business with the world, they find it's very difficult to forecast the exchange rate, right? So there are some forecasting models, right, in order to help them to do these forecasting much accurately, right? So these forecasting methods are basically, there are two types of forecasting method. One is market based forecasting method, the other one is model based forecasting method. In market based forecasting methods, market based forecasting methods, market based forecasting methods derived from market indicators, right? The current forward rate contains implicit information about exchange rate changes for 1 year. interest rate differential may be used to predict exchange rate beyond 1 year. Right? What is this current forward rate? Contains implicit information about exchange rate changes. Current forward rate contains implicit information, means about exchange rate changes. Current forward rate, when you adjust the spot rate with the interest rate differential of two countries, right, you get the forward rate. Okay. Interest rate differential may be used to predict exchange rates beyond 1 year. So they use interest rate differential of two countries to predict the exchange rate beyond 1 year. Market based forecast, based on the market indicators, market variables, they calculate the exchange rate. Okay. Model based forecast includes fundamental and technical analysis. In fundamental analysis, that relies on key macroeconomic variables and policies which most likely affect exchange rates. Key macroeconomic variables. This is the most common approach used by the countries and the firms. What are those key macroeconomic variables? Inflation, interest rate, national income growth, changes in money supply. They consider all those key macroeconomic variables and estimate the exchange rate and check whether the impact of those on check what is the impact of those on exchange rate, right? Technically, they relies on historical volume and price data, charting and trend. They use some historical data, they use charts, they use price data and trend analysis, exponential smoothing, those kind of analysis techniques they use to estimate the exchange rate. Right? Right, that's all about purchasing power parity, and I have posted some questions in the LMS as well, right? So if you go to the LMS, you can download that. I don't know whether you have you saw it. Today I have uploaded them into the LMS. So what we discussed in this session, we covered purchasing power parity, interest rate parity theory, and Fisher effect and international Fisher effect. Why we discuss why this parity conditions occurs, what are the fundamental, this is actually a fundamental for international finance, why then this parity condition explains the determinants of foreign exchange rate. We discussed that, how that explains the determinants, how that determines the exchange rate between two countries, and later finally we discuss how this parity conditions used to forecast the long run exchange rates by the countries, right? That is the summary that we discuss on the purchasing power parity. So shall we move on to the questions? Right. I hope you can see these questions. I have posted the same in the LMS. Here I have just try to cover some areas that we discuss in the class. Question number 1. Inflation rate in the UK and India are respectively 3% and 6% per annum. 3% and 6% per annum. What is the expected exchange rate after 1 year if it was 78 rupees per pound at the beginning? 78 rupees per pound at the beginning. Inflation rate in the UK and India are respectively 3% and 6% per annum. What is the expected exchange rate after 1 year if it was 78 rupees at the beginning? To buy 1 pound we have to pay 78 Indian rupees, right? So here interest rates are given for the two countries, right? So shall we go to the whiteboard? Okay, I will take the whiteboard. Right, we have inflation rate in UK and India, right? Right, inflation in UK is 3%, 0.03, right? 0.03, and India it is 0.06, and S0 is also given, which is equal to rupees 78 we have to pay to buy 1 pound, right? 78 rupees we have to pay to buy 1 pound, right? So we know that the equation, right? We have to find out S1. S1 is equal to S0 times inflation differential between two countries. What is the inflation differential between two countries? 1 plus 0.06 divided by 1 plus 0.03, right? When you adjust the inflation differential between two countries to the spot rate, right, we get expected exchange rate after 1 year. This is going to be 78 rupees. 1.06 divided by 1.03, right? So what is the answer you get? Is it greater than S0 or smaller than S0? It is S1 is 80.27, right, rupees. 80.27, right? That is the answer for question number 1. Then question number 2, right? Question number 2, price indices in the UK and USA are 125 and 200 respectively at the reference period, which is let's say it is time 0, right? These indices change to 129 to 129 and 205 after 1 year. Calculate the exchange rate after 1 year given the reference exchange rate is 1.80. What is this reference exchange rate? That is the spot rate. Reference is the time t0. If the spot rate is $1.80 per pound, right? What is the, you have to calculate the there are questions. I have posted the questions in the LMS. You can find them. Let me check again. Did you find the the questions? Oh, sorry, I think I have posted it into the old one. I will do it now. There is an old LMS page. I have posted it over there because I did it this morning. Right, it is there now. You can get it from the LMS, right? Okay. Right. Okay, question number 2. Yeah, it says price indices in the UK and USA are 125 and 200. So why these figures are given? When the price change in price indices reflect the inflation of the country, right? If there is a change in the price index, we can find out inflation or deflation in the country, right? Here, if you take this, if you summarize this, there is 125 in UK, right? 125, and it has increased to 129, right? In USA it was 200 and it has increased to 205. Okay, now what we supposed to do, we have to calculate the exchange rate after 1 year. We again have to calculate S1, right? So we know the equation. Before going for the equation, we have to find out the inflation rate of two countries, right? So how to find out the inflation rate? This is going to be or let's say let's take inflation of inflation of inflation in UK is equal to 129 divided by 125 minus 1, right? How it is deviated from the initial one. Okay, what you get there? And for US, inflation in US equals to 205 divided by 200 minus 1. Okay. What you get here? Did you get the answers? You get the same answer with this one, right? You can get the same one, 129 minus 125 divided by 125, same answer, right? If you do this one, what I have done is I have taken this 120, this is the common one, no? Right? Okay, what is the answer? It is for UK it is UK it is 0.032, right? For US it is going to be 0.025 0.025. Okay, now you have all the required details. What is S0? S0 is given, it is 1.80, right? You have to find out S1, which is equal to 1.80 times what? 1 plus this one, US, 1 plus 1.025, right? 1.025 right, times 1.025 divided by 1.032, right? So S1 is equal to 1.787878. Okay, so this is the answer. You have to calculate the exchange rate after 1 year, right? Right, I'll do here the question number 3. Question number 3. Any question, online students? Spot Danish krona, that is Denmark currency, is selling for $0.1740. 1 krona is equal to $0.1740, and the 3-month forward rate is selling for $0.1744. 3 months interbank rate for US dollar is 11.6%, and for the Danish krona 11.25, right? Since the interest rate parity does not hold, an annualized gain of 0.57 can be realized. So it is made your life easy, because it has given the calculated gain, right, from the arbitrage, right, realized by borrowing funds in the US at 11.6. It should be 11.6, right? At 11.6, invest them in Denmark at 11.25, and covering the sale of krona with a forward contract maturing in 3 months, right? With a forward contract maturing in 3 months. They can borrow from US and convert them into when you borrow from US, you have to pay the US interest rate, which is 11.6, and you can invest them in Denmark at 11.25, where there is a higher interest rate, right? And you can enter into a forward contract for 3 months, right? Show whether a covered interest arbitrage opportunity exists and how an arbitrager can profit from it, right? Show whether covered interest arbitrage opportunity exists and how an arbitrager can profit from it. So there are some steps that you have to follow here. First, what we have to do, we have to find out the interest rate differential, right? It's very easy. What is the interest rate differential between these two countries? Interest rate differential. We have 11.6 minus 11.25%. What is the answer? It is 0.35%, right? 0.35%, right? Interest rate differential is 0.35%. Okay. So then we have to calculate the forward premium or forward discount, right? How we can calculate the forward premium or forward discount? In the question, it is given the forward rate, spot rate, forward rate, and the 3 months spot rate, right? So it is easy. We have, what is the forward rate? It should be 1.744, right? We have to divide this from the spot rate, which is called 1.740, right? These all are for 3 months, right? Sorry, it should be deduction, right? It should be deduct. We have to deduct from the forward, we have to deduct the spot rate. Then we have to divide this from the forward, the spot rate, 1. No, I made a mistake here. Here, this is the spot Danish krona is selling at 1.740 and 3-month forward rate is selling for 1.744, right? Yeah, we have to divide. Yeah, this is E1 minus E0 divided by 1.74. So these figures are wrong. Yeah, that's why. These are 0.174, right? Not 1 point. Right? 0.1744 minus 0.1740 divided by 0.174 divided by spot rate is 0. Right? Then we have to convert this into 3 months rate because this is the yeah, this is the 3 months rate. Therefore, we have to convert this into annual rate. But we have to do 12 divided by 12 divided by, sorry, multiplied by 12 and divided by 4. Why? These figures are for 3 months. So, in order to convert it into 1 year, we have to multiply this from 3, right? Okay. Right, now we have the rate, this line. We have when you get this, what is the answer you get here? Yeah, it is going to be, we have to multiply this from 100 as well, right? As a percentage we put this, multiply from this 100, then it is going to be 0.92%. Okay, 0.92%, right? Okay, now this is what we have calculated, that is the premium for Danish krona. .92%. Okay. If the covered interest, then here in this question it says that show whether a covered interest arbitrage opportunity exists and how an arbitrator can profit from it. If the interest in the cover interest arbitrage, the interest rate differential does not equal the forward differential, right? So in order to determine when we move the funds to the arbitrage opportunity, right? In order to make funds money from arbitrage, we have to take the interest rate differential, right? So what is the interest rate differential? if you take the interest rate differential, this is the premium. We have to compare the interest rate differential. Sorry, interest rate differential is this one, and the premium for the Danish krona. So what is the differential between these two? 0.35%, right, is smaller than the 0.92%, right? This means that it will allow to move the funds to the country where there is a low interest rates, right? Low interest rate differential, right? So how we can make a profit in arbitration? In order to make a profit, we can borrow. Can you hear now? Okay, right. What we are going to do? We compare the premium for Danish krona and the interest rate differential, right? So what we are going to do? We are going to borrow dollars from US at 11.6. In US, interest rate is 11.6, right? 11.6%, right? So then what we can do, we can convert these dollars into krona at the spot rate, right? So we convert this dollar into krona at the spot rate, right? Then invest this krona in Denmark, right? Right? For 3 months, right? So what is the return we get? We convert these dollars into krona and invest them in Denmark at, what is the percentage that we can get? This is the forward premium. This is the forward premium, 9.92%. Right? We have 0.92 premium. If we invest in, we get 0.92 premium if we invest in Denmark, right? What is here in the question? It is given the answer, right? Since the interest rate parity does not hold, we can see that interest rate parity is not there. No, in US it is yeah, it is 11.6. In Denmark it is 11.25, right? So in the question it says that interest rate parity does not hold. An annualized gain of 5%, 0.57% can be realized by borrowing funds in the US at 11.6 and invest in the Denmark at 11.25, right? In the question it is given what you supposed to do. You have to borrow from US and invest in Denmark, right? So that is what we are going to do here. When you borrow from US, you have to pay interest of 11.6 This is going to be an expenditure, right? But you are going to invest this in Denmark. 11.25 interest you can enjoy, right? On top of that, you can enjoy another premium, which is called forward premium of 9.92%, right? So altogether you get the answer 0.57%. That is how your interest, the gain from investment, so 0.57 calculate, right? This is the heart of the question, right? You borrow in US, invest in Denmark at 11.25, where there is where the interest rate of the particular country, and apart from the interest income, that you can enjoy a forward premium, right? So altogether your gain from this investment is 0.57, right? Okay, try to understand it. It is a bit complicated. I know that, little advanced question, right? So shall we move on to the last question? The last question, number 4, that I have posted in the same question set. It is I will move on to the other side of this whiteboard for question number 4. Right here I will be doing the question number 4. Question number 4, it says suppose the US dollars yen exchange rate moves from yen 270 for $1 at the beginning of the year, right? 270 for $1, right? And by the end of the year, $1 equals 245. Which one is appreciated? Which one is depreciated? So yen is appreciated. So yen currency is appreciated compared to the dollars, right? Dollars are depreciated. At the same time, the US price index rises from 132. US price index rises from 130 to 145. This is for US. And for Japan, Japanese index moved from 110 to 115, right? What is the real appreciation of the yen during this period? So if you do not bother about the price level changes, by looking at the exchange rates, we can say which country has been which country's currency has been appreciated or depreciated. But here, as the inflation figures are also given, price indices are also given, we have to compare that with the price indices, right? So what is the yen's value at the start of the year? One divided by 270. When you divide 1, right, 1 divided by 270 means 0.003737. Okay. At the end of the year, real dollar value is 1 divided by 125. So 245. One divided, here what we have to consider the changes in the inflation. We have to adjust inflation for this end of the year one, because before this period we don't know what is the inflation rate. So this one we have to take the yen value of dollar, we have to take like this, right? This is the yen value of dollar, right? Yen value of dollar, right? After 1 year, yen value of dollar is 1 divided by 245 times 115 divided by 110, right? 115 divided by 110 means end of the year value. This is the beginning value, right? Over, right? In US it was 145 minus 130 price index, right? So what is the answer you get here? For this one you get dollars .003, sorry, 003 8256. So what is the change in the real value of the yen? Change in the real value of the yen. What is that? It was now it is 0.0038256, right? We have to deduct 0.00337, right? And divide this from same one, initial one, 0.0037037. With respect to the initial one, this is the change, right? So what is the answer? So the percentage change in yen is appreciation of yen is 3.29%, right? This is the positive one, appreciation of yen. Right? Alright, any questions? In this one, it is you have to remember that this is the initial exchange rate between two currencies, right? Exchange rate, the price level differences we can compare only for the at the end of year currency, right? Only for the end of year currency we can compare we can consider or incorporate the inflation. There is no data or any information given for the inflation for this period, for the first period, right? Therefore we consider only the inflation for the second period. So when we calculate the yen value for the second period, we have to incorporate the inflation as well. So inflation adjusted yen value has been appreciated from 3.29%. Okay. Okay. Alright, then that's all for today. I'll stop now.